Khalsa Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Okay, so welcome back to part 3 of this Guru Granth Sahib course that we've been doing. So this was originally supposed to be a 4-week course, but there's been some things that we haven't managed to get done in time, so I think this is probably going to roll over. It's not going to be done in 4 weeks. I think it'll probably roll over into the 5th week as well. But for those of you who've been coming, you'll know this is a kind of an intro course that we've been doing into Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj. The idea about it being that for those who when we read Gurbani, maybe we listen to Kirtam, whatever it is, whatever interaction we have with the Gurbani, it should hopefully give us a little bit more context in terms of what we're listening to. It should hopefully pave the way for us to be able to delve deeper into Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj as well. So what we've been looking into is, in the first week, we looked into the history of how Guru Granth Sahib Ji was compiled, where Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj, they began by doing Ucharan of Gurbani, and how that led to Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj as we see Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj today. And then we took that further and we started looking at the sort of structure within Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji as well. So going on from that, what we're going to do is we are still going to be looking at themes, but not in the sort of same way. Today, what we're going to look at more so is going to be around some of the stories that come in Guru Granth Sahib Ji. The reason for that is because if you look in other texts, such as the Quran or within the Bible, it's full of stories, and it goes into depth with these stories as well. Yeah, especially if you read the Bible, it's a lot of stories one after another. Now, Guru Granth Sahib Ji, if we talk about the way Guru Granth Sahib Ji speaks to us, Guru Granth Sahib Ji, a lot of the shabdas you'll see aren't really structured in that way. You don't really see a lot of stories in that way. What you'll see is Maharaj, they're speaking to the soul, they're speaking to the mind. We're singing this Gurbani about the experience of Naam, or the experience of Vishwara from Akal Purkh Vaheguru. It's all about that spiritual experience of trying to unite with Akal Purkh Vaheguru. And it's all about that sort of Atmak Gyan. But when Maharaj does use stories, what they'll often do is they won't delve into the story. What they'll do is they'll refer to a story. And these stories will come from many different other faiths or many different other backgrounds, or, from many years previous. And they won't directly, explain all the stories. Sometimes they do, but most of the time they'll just refer to them. So for someone who's maybe not heard some of these stories, you might be left there thinking, well, what does this mean? And so what we're going to do is we're going to go into 2 or 3 specific ones today, and we're going to look at how many stories there actually are, and we're going to look at how you can go in, you can actually learn about these different stories that are within Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji as well. Any questions before I continue? Okay, before I forget, because I do forget quite often, for those who aren't as familiar, what we have is we have like a question and answer box over there. I know sometimes we don't always maybe want to ask our questions on an open format like this, or sometimes they escape our mind. What you can always just do is some paper and pen, just after the session, whenever you want, just jot down your question, and in the next couple of weeks, at the end, we'll save 15 minutes or so just to go through some of the questions. And that way, if you have a question that you maybe don't want to ask or you think of later, at least then we know we've got it there. Take it. So, first shabad we're going to go into, the two stories we're going to go into are the ones that are included in the Nityanem Baniyan that we do every single day. Yeah? So Rairas that we do in the evening, and Kirtan Soila that we do at night. But there, like I said, there are many more stories that come and that are referred to later. So here we have, in Sri Raira Sahib the part, Maharaj kende har jug jug bhagat upaya, paj rakhda aya Ram Raje. After that, Maharaj says, Harnaksh dusht har marya, Prehlaad traya. And this is an example of what I was saying before. Maharaj is saying here, literal translation is, Harnaksh dusht har marya. The enemy Harnaksh was defeated, Prehlaad traya, and Prehlaad was saved. But then what if you don't know who Harnaksh and Prehlaad are? So that's who we're going to be talking about today, is who are Harnaksh and Prehlaad. So Maharaj in this chapter, what they're saying is, Har jug jug bhagat upaya. They're telling us about the different jugs, the different sort of ages that have come up until now. So as a little bit of a recap, what we know is that we are currently in the age of Kal Jug, the dark age. The dark age meaning the age of the least wisdom, the least spiritual wisdom, the least level of spiritual enlightenment. And during this time, we see a lot of falsehood happening. We see a lot of ego within people. We see a lot of the Panch Jor within people. But it wasn't always like that. And this is something that has come as a result of, over time, over many hundreds of thousands of years, a decline in spiritual wisdom. And there was a time which you could say was that the golden age, which was the height of spiritual wisdom within this world. Not complete, but the height as we see within these worlds, which was Satyug, the age of truth. And then slowly what happened is the amount of truth began to decrease and decrease, and we saw Treta, which was the third age, then Dwapar, and now what we have is we're in Kal Yug. And so Maharaj is referring to this, and they're saying, Har Jug Jug Bhagato Paya, that within every one of these ages, Maharaj has sent Bhagats. They have sent different avatars, they have sent different Bhagats, different devotees to come and either spread the message of Akal Purkh Vaheguru or to do some sort of duty, to do some sort of job. Yeah? Under the hukam of Akal Purkh Vaheguru. And when they come, Maharaj kende page rakhda aya Ram Raje. That when they come, Maharaj ona di page rakhda hai, Maharaj ona di laaj rakhda hai. They look after their honor. And this is what they're referring to when they're talking about Harnaksh, Dushtara Marya, Prehlaad Traya, that in the same way, Harnaksh was killed and Prehlaad was saved. So this is just what we were saying, in that every single jug then has different people that come. So in each jug, what you have is, in each age, you also have the sort of the main avatar. I.e., Maharaj themselves will come as an avatar within that jug. Yeah? And when they come, they'll manifest within this world with a certain amount of their power. So in the age of Satyajug, Maharaj came as Vishnu. Yeah? Vasudev Vishnu in Satyajug. In Satyajug, they gave Vishnu so many, or they came and they gave so many powers to Vishnu. Yeah? Then in Treta Yug, they came back as Ramchandra. We know these names, and are from sort of Sanatana Hindu thoughts. But in Treta, we have Ramchandra. So Maharaj came as Ramchandra. They manifested, but even then they did not have the full kala, they did not have the full power of Akal Purkh Vaheguru. And then in Dwapar, we see Krishna came. He was the next avatar of Vaheguru. Vaheguru manifested themselves within Krishna. And then finally, here now in Kal Yug, the avatar of Kal Yug is Sri Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj. But the difference between Sri Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj and the ones that had come before is that Sri Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj is Sarv Kala Samarath. They hold all the power of Akal Purkh Vaheguru. Is Vaheguru has completely manifested within Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj. This is what we learn from our history. So Sri Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj compared to the ones that have come before, because if you imagine in Kal Yug, if you have the most amount of darkness, you need the most amount of light as well. And for this reason, Maharaj manifested themselves completely and utterly through Sri Guru Nanak Dev Ji. But the Sakhi we're talking about today did not happen in Kal Yug, it happened in Satyajug. So this was the age of, just before Ramchandra, in Satyajug, we have somebody called Harnaksh. Harnaksh, he's born with a brother. And as he grows up, his brother is killed in war. And because his brother is killed in war, he gets afraid of death. And in his fear of dying, he decides he's going to do meditation and penance, and he's going to request immortality. So he spends a lot of time meditating during that time. Like I said, this was a time in Satyajug where people knew about spiritual devotions, people knew about spiritual meditation, these types of things, and the powers that could be gained from this. So these types of things happened during that time, a lot more than they happen now. So what happens is, upon his brother's death, he starts doing different penances, he starts doing lots of different meditation. Eventually what happens is, he is met by Brahma, the demigod of creation. And Brahma approaches Harnaksh, and Brahma says to Harnaksh that you have done so much bhakti, mangala jo mangana, main tenu denu tyaar hai, just ask for what you want to ask for. Harnaksh says to Brahma, give me immortality, I would never want to die. Or Brahma kenda ki eh main tenu de nahi sakda, this is not something that's within my gift to give you. Or the Akal Purkh Vaheguru de sakda ya. But in the creation of Akal Purkh Vaheguru, apart from Akal Purkh Vaheguru, everything has to end at some point. Everyone has to die at some point. So Harnaksh would ask for different boons. He would say things like, I make it so that I never die, or make it so that I can't die either at day or at night. And then he'll ask for another boon and say, make it so that I cannot die either inside or outside. And then he'll ask for another boon and he'll say, make it so that I cannot die by animal or by man. And through asking for these different boons, what would happen was, Harnaksh had this feeling of invincibility. That who can now kill him? If he cannot be killed inside or outside, or day or night, or by man or by animal, or by weapon, how could he die? And he had this feeling of invincibility. And because of that, during that time, he accepted himself as God. And he started to preach his own sort of name. And he made the people, everybody, to recite his name. Just like if, within our history, the ones that we know about as well, Guru Gobind Singh Ji Maharaj refers to this, that many prophets have come and they've done the same thing, that they've come with some sort of level of power, and people worship them, and they began to feel that they were God, and they made people attached to them rather than attaching to God. And in that way, they did not fulfill their mission. So Guru Gobind Singh Ji specifically refers to, for example, Muhammad. That Muhammad came, but through his ego, because people were praising him, he did not unite people with God, he united people with his way. And in the same way, we see Harnaksh has been doing this as well. Harnaksh, however, he has a son, Prehlaad. When his wife is pregnant with Prehlaad, she does a lot of sangat with someone called Narad Muni, who is a sage. Narad Muni inspires her to do a lot of meditation, to repeat Ram, Ram. That was the meditation of the time, just as we do Vaheguru Mantra now. At that time it was Ram, to repeat Ram. Because this Prehlaad is different. Prehlaad is born as a Bhagat, as a very spiritual person, that even in the young age they are very spiritually attuned to Vaheguru. So when he grows to about 5 or 6 years old, he goes to his teacher who's called Sanda Marka. And Sanda Marka is saying to him to repeat Harnaksh. That was one of his first lessons, to repeat Harnaksh, to meditate on Harnaksh. And Prehlaad, he refuses, and this actually comes quite a lot within Gurbani. He says that I'm only to repeat Ram, Ram. He keeps saying that I only want to repeat Ram, Ram. This is the mantra that was given to me. I'm going to repeat Ram, Ram. And Maharaj talks about this. This is one of the few stories that are actually fully explained within Gurbani. And they'll say, he was being taught about Harnaksh, and Bhagat Prehlaad is saying to his teacher Sanda Marka, he's saying, I don't want to know about Harnaksh. Meri patiya likh deho Sri Gopal. Gopal, Go is a tarti, Pal is, Rakhya Karan Wala, the one who looks after the whole of creation. Tell me about him. I want to know about him. Meri patiya likh de. In another Shabd Maharaj kende, Meri patiya likho Har Govind Gopala. Yeah, tell me about Vaheguru. I don't want to know about Harnaksh. They understood that there was someone even greater than Harnaksh. And upon hearing this, when his mother heard about this, she knew that this was going to cause trouble and that this was going to cost him his life, because Harnaksh wasn't going to let this stand. And so, like I say, Maharaj, they go through this Shabad within Gurbani. I'm just taking little excerpts out here. So if we look just to the right over there, in this Shabad, Maharaj is saying, Mata Upadesa Prehlaad Pyare. So Mata Upadesa, the mother of Prehlaad is saying, Prehlaad Pyare, she's speaking to her son. Putter Ram Naam Shoddo. She's saying to her son, Putter Ram Naam Shoddo. Let go of the name of Ram. Jio Leho Ubare. And save your own life. Then Prehlaad replies. So then in Bani Maharaj says, Prehlaad kaha. So now Prehlaad is speaking. Sunho meri mai. Listen, my mother. Ram Naam na Shodda. Gur diya bujhai. I will never let go of the name of Ram. I will never let go of the name of Vaheguru, Gurdiya Bujhai, that just as my Guru has given this to me, he's instructed me to never let go of this name. I will continue to repeat the name of Lord. So what happens then is, Harnaksh now hears about this, and he now has conspired that he's going to kill Prehlaad. And he thinks of many different ways to kill Prehlaad, but what happens is that in trying to kill Prehlaad, Maharaj, because Prehlaad would do so much jap of Ram, Maharaj then would save the honor of Prehlaad. Maharaj would look after Prehlaad, and many of the attempts against his life failed. Many attempts against his life failed. One of the attempts, actually, interestingly enough, there was one attempt from his own sister who was called Holika. Holika actually went to try and set Prehlaad on fire. But upon trying to set Prehlaad on fire, she actually set on fire herself and she died in that way. And interestingly, it's quite funny that we're talking about this now, because originally, so tell me, we just celebrated, many people just celebrated Lodi. Why do people celebrate Lodi? What's the reason? Aam karke, what do people celebrate for? Yeah, for their son or for like a child or something like that. And normally for their son, that their son's just come. The original reason wasn't because a son was born. The original reason was, Hanji, yeah, so it was to do with this. They were celebrating the fact that Prehlaad was saved. Yeah. They were celebrating this. This is where the actual original sort of story of Lodi comes from. So in this way, Harnaksh tried in many different ways to try and kill Prehlaad. Prehlaad does ardas to Maharaj. At that time, when I say Maharaj, what I mean is at that time he's doing ardas to Vishnu. Yeah. So just as this time we might do ardas to Guru Nanak Dev Ji, the avatar of that time is Vishnu. So he does ardas to Vishnu, and Vaheguru through Vishnu takes the avatar of a beast called Narsingh. This beast is half lion, half man. And so Narsingh goes and he goes to kill Harnaksh. How is this? Because Harnaksh said, I don't want to be able to be killed by either a man or an animal. But Narsingh was neither. Narsingh was a beast. He said, I should not be killed within either day or night. But he was killed actually at sunset, neither day nor night. He said, I don't want to be killed inside or outside. He was killed on his doorstep, in his doorway, neither inside nor outside. And like I said, not by man, not by animal, not by weapon, but by this creature of Narsingh. So this Shabad is referenced in Gurbani quite often to show a few different things. It's to show that, number one, to give us the lesson about the devotion that Prehlaad had, that even amidst all that adversity, they did not let go of the name of Ram, or they did not let go of the name of Vaheguru. And then in return, how Vaheguru protects their devotees. Yeah, Bhagatan ki tek tu, santan ki ot tu. That you are the support of the devotees, you are the support of the sants. Just before I continue, is there any questions on that? Here you go. So in this way, we see Maharaj uses this story quite often to refer to how Maharaj will protect us, how Maharaj will listen to our ardasa, that when we pray to Akal Purkh Vaheguru, even if we do not let go of their name, if we do not let go of their robe, if we stay within their sharan, then Maharaj will always protect us. And I go back to the example that I used last week. Yeah? Think about the eyelid example that I used last week. What did we say? What is the reason that we have, what is the job of the eyelid? What is it? So you all have eyelids, yeah? For those who wasn't here last week, what is the job of your eyelid? Protect the eye. What else? Clean the eye. Because of the eyelid, the tears form within the eye. Yeah? The tears form within the eye, that cleans the eye and it stops the eye from drying out. Now most people don't know that, or some people know that, but most people will forget about that as well. Other thing, the eyelid, when we blink, does anybody ever think about blinking? No. The eyelid's right in front of us. Can anybody see their eyelid? No. So, number one, our eyelid at all time is right in front of us, right in front of our eyes, but we can't see it. In the same way, Akal Purkh Vaheguru is in front of us at all times. They are all around us at all times, but we still cannot see them. In the same way that our eyelid at all times is protecting our eye, is allowing our eye to function, in the same way Akal Purkh Vaheguru right in front of us at all times is always protecting us, is always looking after us in ways we do not see, in ways we do not think about. At a blink of an eye, just how quickly and how often our eyelid looks after our eye. In the same way, even more so, at all moments, Akal Purkh Vaheguru is looking after us, is doing our rakhya. But we cannot always see this. Sometimes we see the trials and tribulations we have in life, and as we think that Maharaj does not have my back, or Maharaj is not looking after me. But even those things, sometimes that we think we did not achieve this, or Maharaj did not give me this, or did not have this opportunity. If you think of a small baby who's trying to crawl towards a fire, now the mother is going to see that that fire is dangerous, and she's going to go and pick that baby up. The baby's going to cry because all he sees is the fire, and he's thinking, I want to go and crawl to the fire, but the mother knows that that fire is dangerous. And in the same way in life, we crawl to many different things and we try to attain many different things. But Maharaj, who has the full sight of everything, they know what is best for us and what isn't. And Sant Baba Shyam Singh Ji is an example that we've used in this class of Sant Baba Shyam Singh Ji. Baba Shyam Singh Ji, the great Mahapurkh from the 18 and 1900s. Baba Shyam Singh Ji, he would do seva at Darbar Sahib. And if you've been to Darbar Sahib, what you'll know is as you're walking around Harmandir Sahib, on the corners, you'll have people who are doing seva, giving jal pani. Yeah? And when you'll go and you'll give jal pani, the sevadars will often say, Bol Vaheguru. And when you say Vaheguru, then they'll give you some pani. One day, Sant Baba Shyam Singh Ji was doing this seva. And as somebody approached him, as he would always do, Sant Baba Shyam Singh Ji says, Bol Vaheguru. The guy says that, I'm not going to say Vaheguru, I just want the water. And Sant Baba Shyam Singh Ji repeats, he says, Bol Vaheguru. He goes, give me the water or don't give me the water, but I'm not going to say Vaheguru. I'm not going to say Vaheguru, because what has Vaheguru ever done for me? Because I'm poor, I'm destitute, I've got nothing. Maharaj's never done anything for me. I've got so many issues within my life. What has Vaheguru ever done for me that I should say their name? Sant Baba Shyam Singh Ji, he says to the guy, he says, come back tomorrow. Because I'm going to meet you tomorrow then. He goes, come back here. They meet again the next day. Sant Baba Shyam Singh Ji, because he had done so much seva, many people used to give him a lot of money to be able to carry out the seva that he would do. And that money that he would have, he would put it towards that seva. Sant Baba Shyam Singh Ji, he had around 5,000 rupees, which in those days was a lot of money. This was about 150 years ago now. In those days was a lot of money. Life-changing money. This would set you up for generations. Yeah, it'd set your kids and your grandkids up for generations. It was that kind of level of money. He takes all of that money and brings it back to meet this guy. And he says, I'm ready to give you 3,000 rupees, you just give me one of your eyes. The guy says, of course I'm not going to do that. I can't give you my eye for 3,000 rupees. And Sant Baba Shyam Singh says, okay. I'll give you 5,000 rupees. I'll give you the lot. Yeah? Just give me one of your eyes. And even then the man refuses. And Sant Baba Shyam Singh, he says, no matter how much I offer to you, no matter how much I try and give you, whether I give you 10,000 or 100,000, you'll never pull out your eye and give it to me. But yet at the same time, you're telling me that you've got nothing. But there is something that you have that is worth more than I can ever give you. And you're trying to tell me that Maharaj's not giving you anything? Vaheguru's not giving you anything? Yeah? There's no number I could give you. But what you're not looking at is you're looking at what Maharaj hasn't given you. You're forgetting what Maharaj has given you. Yeah? All the gifts that Maharaj has given you, you've turned your back on those and you're focusing on what you don't have. And that's a surefire way to keep yourself depressed, to keep yourself upset, to keep yourself away from Maharaj, to not look at the things that you do have, to not be grateful for the things that you do have. Yeah? We all think that we could be better off if we had this, or if we had something else, or if something would just come into our lives. Not realizing that what we have right now, the clothes that we have on our back, the houses that we may live in, even though we might think the house isn't maybe my dream house, that house, or the clothes that you're wearing, or the food that you have, that is the dream of somebody else. That is something that somebody else doesn't have. So you're fortunate in that you do have that. And in that way, I go back to what I was saying earlier, Maharaj, in ways that we don't even realize, out of our own ignorance, Maharaj is always looking after us. Yeah? It may be that tomorrow, tonight we may go home, or tomorrow we may not have food on the table. Yeah? And then we'll realize that what we had before. Somebody one day they may lose their health. If they're in good health, one day they lose their health. Something happens to them. And then they realize what Maharaj gave to them in good health as well. But it's only at that point when we lose it that we actually realize, okay, what we actually had in the first place. Is there any questions on that before we move on? Okay. I just want to sort of reiterate what I was saying about the avatar of Vishnu. So obviously, at this point, the avatar was Vishnu, but this was not the complete form of Vaheguru. Yeah? So Vaheguru, they would say that there was a certain amount of Kale, a certain amount of powers that was given to Vishnu, and a certain amount that was given to Ram, a certain amount that was given to Krishna. But the complete power laid within Sri Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj. They were the full manifestation. Okay. No questions before I move on, yeah? Okay, cool. Remind me then, because the next Sakhi is going to be about Garam. Remind me, for those who've been here a while, what are the three types of Garam? Do anybody remember? Three types of Garam? Koi na, remind kar denge. Give me 2 seconds. Okay, just a quick little introduction to Garam for those who haven't been here much, or for those who have apparently forgotten as well. Okay. As we know, throughout our life, or throughout the many lives that we have been on, every single time we go into a life form, we collect Garam. What is Garam? In our life, we do 3 things. Yeah? We think, we speak, and we act. Man, Bach, Garam. Those 3 things are all part of the Garam, the actions that we collect. Everything we think, everything we say, everything we do, that is being written down. Yeah? That is being written down, is being recorded, and is being collected, and those go with us into our future lives as well. When I say everything we think, everything we say, just imagine how big that actually is. So we did an experiment here one time, and we said, everybody stay quiet for 10 seconds and tell me how many thoughts come to your mind. And somebody said 4, somebody said 5, somebody said 6. Okay, So within 10 seconds, let's say on average, everybody has about 5 thoughts in 10 seconds, yeah? On average, in 10 seconds, you have about 5 thoughts that come to your mind. How many thoughts might you have in a minute? Some hundreds. How many thoughts might you have in an hour? Some thousands. How many thoughts might you have in a day? Millions. How many thoughts might you have in a year? Couldn't even count it. How many thoughts might you have in a lifetime? Couldn't even count it. How many thoughts might you have in millions of lifetimes? Who can count that much? Add in everything you've ever said. Add in everything you've ever done as well. Every minuscule action you've ever done as well. That collection, that whole collection comes into something called your Sanchit Karam. Yeah? So I'll just put the names on the board here. That all comes into something called your Sanchit Karam. The complete collection of every single karam that you've ever done. Yeah? Everything that we've ever done, we have to repay this. Whether we've done something good, whether we've done something bad, we have to either receive the reward for it, we have to, repay whatever action it is. We have to repay that debt. We've brought some imbalance into the world, and we're the only ones that can take that imbalance out. However, I can't repay all of this in one go. I can't repay all of this in one life. So what's going to happen is, some of this karam, not all of it, some of it is going to come into this life form. So I'm now born. I have this whole collection of karam that I have to pay off. Some of it is going to come with me in this life form, and I will burn off some of these in my life form. I have no choice about these. So this will tell me things such as, for example, based on my previous karam, based on what I've done previously, it will be decided that me, Govinder Singh, was born in Leeds. I had no choice about that. It decided my parents. I had no choice about that either. It decided my looks. Unfortunately, I had no choice about that either. It decided many different things, many things that I'm going to go through my life. I've got no choice over. These are things that are just going to have to happen to me. Yeah? I might have to, even the way you die, the way I'm going to die, how many breaths I'm destined to take, that is already written. How many breaths I'm going to take in this lifetime is already written. I've got no choice over that either. Certain things might have to happen to me. Maybe maybe I have to meet a certain type of person. Maybe I'll walk out of here, maybe I'll talk to one of you, we'll have a conversation. Something will come off the back of that conversation. That was written maybe from my previous life as well. The fact that I'm stood here today, this could be to do with something from my previous life as well. The fact that you are all here, this has all come from your karam as well. So many things have been written from our own previous life. And the natija of that, the outcome of what we've done in our previous life, we are seeing now. Yeah? And so what happens is, in this way, we burn off all these different karam. And these, let's say, these are set to the side now. But what happens is, while we are in this world, we carry on thinking more thoughts, we carry on saying more things, we carry on doing more actions. And what happens because of that is, we get even more actions that go into our pile, that go into the Sanchit Karam. So that is basically how the circle of life and death works, because now I've just added even the same amount or even more karams into this, and I have to come back and have to repay those, but then I do even more actions, I have to come back and have to repay those, and it just keeps going and going and going. And the only way that we know, Maharaj told us, the only way to burn these karam is through Naam and through Gurbani. So we have the Sanchit Karam, which is the complete accumulation of that karam. And then we have the Pralabdha Karam, and that is that karam that has come with us in this life. And then we have the Kiryaman Karam, and that Karam is the one that we are continually doing, that we're continually adding back to that pot. And then what happens is, here, as we stand here today, we have, Kathavachis will call this two different types of minds. You have the mind that you're familiar with, your Manshik Man, which is the one where we make decisions of. So right now, your Manshik Man is what's allowing you to listen to me. It's if you were to say something to me, that'll be because of your conscious mind. Yeah? What you experience, everything is coming through your Manshik Man, but that is probably, 5 to 10% of what your actual complete consciousness is. The rest of your consciousness is based on your Sanchit Man. So even little things, like your personality, your behaviors, certain things that have come from a previous life, this comes in your Sanchit Man. You don't have a choice about that. Yeah? This just comes. Kisa garam subaya, kisa thanda subaya, that's come from there. These things come from previous lives as well. These things are decided previously as well. Sometimes, people's tendencies, what they are drawn towards. Maybe some of us have noticed this as well. There are some people who might grow up in terrible conditions, terrible sangat, terrible company, but they've got a heart of gold. Yeah? How's that happened? Pichle karm karke. There are people who have grown up in great sangat. Yeah, they've grown up maybe grown up on Gursikhs, they've had fantastic sangat. But their actions, they just never seem to match up to that level of sangat. That was part of that karma as well. Yeah. There are certain people, for example, you could speak to someone. You might go outside and you might try and discuss Sikhi with them. You might try and encourage someone. You might say, we should really get together more and do more sangat and do more Naam. And some people who will be like, yeah, absolutely, we do. And there's some people who will just, no matter how much you try and explain to them, they'll just never understand. Yeah. So these things, this sort of sanchit man, this comes, a lot of it from our Pishle Karam as well. Is there any questions before I go on to the next part? Okay, so Maharaj uses quite a few examples of this. There's one about, if you've heard of Ganika, we're not going to talk about her today, but there's one that we're going to talk about today of someone called Ajaamal Paapi. So I'll go back to the Shabad that's in Guru Granth Sahib ji. Maharaj says, Ajaamal Paapi jag jane, nimak mahe ni satara. Hands up everyone who's heard of Ajaamal. Anybody heard of Ajaamal? Okay. Ajaamal Paapi jag jane. Maharaj is saying in the Shabad that Ajaamal Paapi, who was known throughout the world, jag jane, nimak mahe ni satara. Within an instant, he was redeemed by Vaheguru. So this is another person who is referred to. Once again, it doesn't go through the actual full story of who Ajaamal was. So this is what we're going to go through next. Ajaamal was the son of a Raj Purohit, which is a Brahmin who is kind of, you could say, like the high priest. So in a kingdom, he was the son of one of the highest priests. He would, be in direct contact with the king. And because of that, he grew up in a really well-to-do family. He grew up very well educated. He was educated in all the different ancient Granths. He was educated to be the next sort of Raj Purohit when his father passes away. And his father taught him a lot of different things. And his father especially said to him that when you grow up, never go to the southern part of the city, because in the southern part of the city is very different to here. He knew that if his son goes to the southern part of the city, there was a lot of bad that happened in the southern part of the city. So Ajaamal, he grows up, he gets married, he has kids, and he gets married, he has kids. Eventually his father dies. Sometime later, he has to go down to the southern part of the city for some kam. And he, naturally he goes through there. As he's going through there, he realizes it's completely different to anything that he's ever seen before. There's brothels, the people are completely different there. And as he's driving through, or as he's sort of riding through, he notices outside of a brothel, there's a prostitute there. And he becomes enticed by the prostitute. He tries to fight his mind, but through the temptation, he goes and, he goes and he meets with the prostitute. And over time, what happens is he keeps going back to see that prostitute. That one moment of temptation turned into him going back secretly to see this prostitute again and again and again. Eventually, people started to find out. So it became like an open secret that he has his mistress, and his wife would plead with him to stop going to see that lady because it was now an open secret. The king even called him and said that, we have to look after your family. You're someone of a high status. Tried to samjha to him that stop what you're doing, that this is not befitting of you or your family. I have a lot of respect for your dad, so this is why I'm samjhaing to you now. But even then, he would not stop. Even to the point where he moved his mistress into his part of the city, and he was basically leading this double life. Eventually, in leading this double life, the Raja came to Ajaamal and says that I can't have this happening in my kingdom. I need to be able to look after my kingdom, and also your wife and your children, they need looking after. So he banished both the Ganika, the prostitute, and Ajaamal away from the city. So Ajaamal and the Ganika, they've left. So Ajaamal's with his mistress, and long story short, as he grows older with her, they become destitute, they become poor. They've lost everything because he's been banished. They've lost their house and lost all their wealth. He becomes really poor. Because of that, they become ill. They're always fighting. Their relationship doesn't work out. Yeah, they become really miserable. But eventually, the Ganika becomes pregnant, and they're expecting their child. So what happens is, on the day that his child is born, just as it so happens, and I go back to Bhaktaram, that Maharaj presents his opportunities in this life, and many of this is to do with our Pishle Karam, that some sadhus knock on his door and there's bad weather outside. And the sadhus, these holy people, they say to him that there's bad weather. Is it okay if we just sort of, wait it out over here? Can we just spend the night, maybe just wait it out over here? Now, this is the thing about Karam, Hana. In our life, we'll be presented with many different opportunities, and we'll have an opportunity which way to go. Little things like, do I go to the Guru Gar? Do I not go to the Guru Gar? Yeah? Do I follow this line of Sikhi? Do I not follow this line of Sikhi? Every minuscule decision comes to us, is presented to us as part of our Karam as well. So those who are not here today, it was not in their Karam to be here today. Those of you who had those of you who had the thought in your mind, do I go, do I not go, and you went, oh, ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਕਰਮ ਆਂਦੇ ਕਰਕੇ ਸੀਗੇ. So Ajaamal, because of his previous karmas, because of the good he had done previously, he was presented with this opportunity now that he was now going to have the opportunity to save himself. Because these sadhus came and they took pity on him. They saw right through him. Because this is the sort of one of the characteristics of a very spiritual person, that when they look at you, they can see your character. They can see what you've done wrong. They can see what you've done good. They can see exactly who you are and what you are. So they looked at Ajaamal and they knew that this person is going to suffer when he dies at the hands of the Jamdut, at the angels of death. He's going to suffer a lot because he's done a lot of misdeeds. Yeah, he's done a lot of bad. That's why even now we call him Ajaamal Paapi. In Bani, he's known as Ajaamal Paapi. He's still given that name because he had done so much bad. And they decided between themselves, look, we're not going to try and samjar to him because they kind of knew what he was like on the inside. They knew that if they tried to samjar to him, many people have tried to samjar to him before to leave this lady, that he's never going to listen. There's no point trying to samjar to him. Yeah, sometimes maybe we're trying to samjar someone to do something good and they just don't listen, and we try and do it again and again and again. We say to them, do it again, and we try and do it again. But sometimes it doesn't work, and it goes back to what I said before. Sometimes their mind just isn't set out to be able to listen to that. And these come because of their Sanchitaman as well. Yeah? And at that time, there's a saying actually in the Bible. And in the Bible it says, don't throw pearls at pigs. Basically meaning, if you've got pearls of wisdom and somebody's not listening to it, at some point you've just got to walk away as well. And Maharaj vi murkha na nalujia, don't argue with fools. Yeah, don't debate with fools. If someone's not understanding, then just leave it be. Yeah, there's no point dragging it out, longing it out. So they knew that he was never going to grasp what they were going to try and tell him. So what they did is they said, name your son Narayan. Narayan is a word for God. It's a characteristic of God. Yeah, it's a job that people do. So he named his son Narayan. Anyway, the sadhus go, and throughout his life, obviously every single time we call his son Narayan, 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 he unwittingly was doing a job of God while calling his son's name, all the way throughout his life. And he loved his son so much, and he just fell in love with the name that he would just keep saying it, Narayan, Narayan, not unwittingly also doing the job of Parameshwar. Eventually what happens is, he grows old, comes to, and he's on his deathbed. While he's on his deathbed, he sees that the Jamdut are coming for him, the angels of death. For those that don't know, that when somebody dies, if they have not been saved, if they are to come again within this life form, their soul is taken by the angels of death, the Jamdut, who are these kind of demonic figures, you might say. And they come, and the experience with the Jamdut, Maharaj describes it as the Jamdut, they cause a lot of pain to the soul. Yeah, they drag the soul out of the body and they drag the soul to someone called Dharamraj. Dharamraj is the person who has basically the books of everything you've done, who decides where you go next. Yeah, this is the job of the Jamdut. And there are many different experiences that that we know of, that even before somebody's about to die, that the Jamdut will show up to try and scare them, yeah, to intimidate them, and they will taunt them. And many times people, even at the end of their life, I'm not meaning to sort of scare anyone, but it just just so that we're aware as well. Many times you'll see people 5 minutes before their death, 10 minutes before their death, sometimes they are almost frozen because they can see the Jamdut coming towards them. And there are people who reported, I even know as well, of people who weeks or months, they see the Jamdut around them as well, and they know that their death is coming because they hang around them. So the Jamdut have started to come, and he started to see them circling him. And out of fear, he started shouting for his son. Narayan, 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 Narayan. Start shouting for his son. Because he kept doing the job of Narayan, because of this, the demigods, the Devi Devte, the angels, they came and they showed up. And there was a debate between the Jamdut and the Devte about where Ajaamal should go. Because Ajaamal had done so much bab, but at the same time he had done so much job as well. And there's a book called the Srimad Bhagavad Purana that has this whole sort of discussion in there. It's quite interesting, this whole debate that's in there. And eventually this debate is taken to Dharamraj, the person who is like the account holder, the person who decides where you're going to go. And Dharamraj says something interesting, and many of us have probably read this before as well, because it comes within Kirtan Soila. Dharamraj says to them, Jeh sadhu gobind bhajan, kirtan nanak neet, na ho, na tu, nah shuteh, nikta na jaiye ho doot. Dharamraj says to them that wherever Jeh sadhu gobind bhajan, kirtan nanak neet, wherever the praise of Akal Purkh Vaheguru, wherever the jap of Akal Purkh Vaheguru, wherever the kirtan of Akal Purkh Vaheguru is happening, he says, I can't go there. Na ho, na tu, says the Jamdut, you can't go there. Nikta na jaiye ho doot. Nah shuteh, nikta na jaiye ho doot. Neither of us will be saved if we go there. I cannot go there. The Jamdut cannot go in a place wherever the recitation or wherever the jap of Vaheguru is happening. And in that way, the Devi Devti took him to the Svaraglow, took him to the heavenly abodes. He was saved and emancipated through that Naam. Even though Ajaamal had done so much bad through the recitation, through the jap of that Naam, he was saved in this way. And this Shabad here comes in Kirtan Soila that we read at night, and obviously we read it, but sometimes people don't know what the history of this is as well. And this is Guru Arjan Dev Ji quoting what Dharamraj said to the Jamdut at that time, saying that whenever there is Simran happening, saying that whenever there is any sort of job of this kind happening, we cannot go there. Yeah, we are not allowed to go into that place. Is there any questions before I move on? And this, this reminds me of one Shabad that comes in Guru Granth Sahib Ji as well. Maybe some of us have heard it as well. Ari Bai Gobind Naam Mat Bisara. Yeah? Because this Shabad will tell us what happens depending on what we think about, what is in our mind. You see, your thoughts are very, very powerful. What you ask for is very, very powerful as well. And that's why I put up there, careful what you wish for. Because what you ask for, invariably, you're going to get. And there's a lot of people, and I've been there myself as well, where maybe you'll go and you'll do ardas for some type of worldly thing. Be it I pass this interview, be it I get this job, be it whatever it might be. And in your mind, there's something ticking in your mind that says, maybe I should ask for Naam, or maybe I should ask for Sikhi, maybe I should ask for the thing that I really need. And then you think, I'll ask for that next time. Yeah. Let me get this thing first, and then I'll ask for that next time. Yeah. But sometimes maybe that next time doesn't come, and maybe there's another demand, and maybe there's another request, and there's another request. And these things that we thirst for, naturally, they become a part of our ability, they become a part of who we are. Yeah? It becomes a part of what we think about. Everything that we think about. If I spend my whole life just thinking, okay, I want to get to the next step in my career, and then the next step in my career, and then the next step in my career, that's never going to stop. Yeah? Because there's always going to be somewhere more I could go. And so Maharaj is talking about those thoughts that we have at the end of our life, at the last point, because most likely whatever you're thinking about at the last point, at that point where you're going to go, you're going to think about what you've been thinking about your whole life, yeah? That's where your true colours are going to show, yeah? So Maharaj actually says here, and it tells you what will happen to you in your afterlife depending on what your last thoughts are. And so Maharaj says here, they say, Antakal jo Lakshmi Simra. At the last moment, those who remember, who think about their wealth, their money, their possessions, Aisi chinta mahije mera. And aisi chinta mahije mera, they die having these thoughts. Sarp jon val val autara, that person is reborn again and again as a snake. Because snakes are said to be, sort of they're attracted to wealth and they're attracted to money and these types of things. Maharaj says, कि अंतकाल जो istri simra, aisi chinta mahije mera. That person who dies thinking lustful thoughts, thinking about, here it says istri, which is women, but just think about the opposite sex, thinking about lustful thoughts. Aisi chinta mahije mera, once again, dies thinking about these things. Maharaj, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਕੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ? ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕਿ ਬੇਸਵਾ ਜੋਨ ਵਲ ਵਲ ਅਵਤਰ, that they are reborn again and again as a prostitute. That's what you wanted. That's what you're thinking about. You've got it. Yeah? That's what was on your mind. ਉਹੀ ਤੂੰ ਪ੍ਰਾਪਤ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦਾ ਸੀ. Now that's what you've got. And Maharaj goes on and they say, Antakal jo ladke simra, aisi chinta mahije mara. That person who dies thinking about their children. Aisi chinta mahije mara, and they're thinking about their children. Ladke simra. Ladke means your child. Sukar juna val val autara, is reborn as a pig. Why? Because what does a pig do? It sits in its filth and lets its piglets run around him. You wanted your kids, you got your kids. Yeah? But then Maharaj goes on and they say, I won't go through the whole Shabad, but Maharaj goes on and they say, Antaka Narayan Simra, Aisi Chinta Mahije Mara. That person at the end that thinks about Vaheguru, that is reciting Vaheguru. Bhagat Trilochan Te Nara Mukta, Pitampara Vake Ridabsa. That Bhagat Trilochan, this Shabad by Samukha Bhagat Trilochan, they are saying that that person becomes mukt, they become liberated. And now we might say, oh, here's the here's the get out jail free card. I'll just make sure when I'm going to die, I'll just think about Vaheguru then. Yeah, but obviously it doesn't work that way. Whatever you've been thinking about your whole life, it's not going to stop in your deathbed. Yeah, that last moment, you're going to think about what you've been thinking about your whole life, what you value so much throughout your whole life. Yeah, and it becomes very, very hard throughout your life if you've not done any sort of tapasya during your life to start doing that at the last moment. But the point is, we don't know when our last moment's going to come. You know? Our last moment could come at any time. Nothing's guaranteed. Like I said earlier, everything's already been written for us, and we don't know when it's been written for us. It's already been written how many breaths we're going to take. We don't know how many that's going to be. We don't know. There's no guarantee that we grow old. No guarantee for anyone. Yeah? It can be a bit of a touchy subject talking about death, but Maharaj says talk about death, face death. Yeah? Accept death. Because the death is the only thing that's true. Jona truth. To live, that is the truth. That is falsehood. But to die, that is truth. Yeah? That is the only true thing. That is the only guaranteed thing for all of us. And we should all, every single day, be preparing ourselves for death. Am I ready for that last moment? Because that last moment could come at any point. Any questions there? Any questions? Okay. So we're at 8 o'clock, so we're going to this is the sort of last couple of bits now, so about 10 more minutes and then we'll wrap up. One point I just want to get from that is, obviously you've heard that there's different, you had Bhagat Prehlaad who was doing jap of Ram. You had Ajaamal Paapi who was doing the jap of Narayan. And these are different Naam, these are different names obviously that have been given to God. But there's a difference between how we do jap of Vaheguru and the jap that they may have done back then. Like I mentioned, Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj is the complete avatar of Akal Purkh Vaheguru. And they brought the complete message. And in the same way, they brought the complete mantra as well, Gur Mantra. So our Gur Mantra, like we discussed last week, is Vaheguru jap. And so these other names, because they come in Guru Granth Sahib as well, names such as Ram, names such as Narayan, names such as Allah, these different types of names of God, what these are known as is Kirtam Naam. I.e., they are a description of God. They'll describe a facet of God. So we talk about Gopal, the Go is the Srishti, Pal is the one who looks after the whole of creation. Yeah, it's an explanation of what God is. It's one little facet of God. And I use the explanation that I did last week. It's like if you have a bunch of people stood around an elephant and they're all blindfolded. And they've all got their hand on the elephant. And they're all trying to say that they all think that they're experiencing the whole elephant or they're touching the whole elephant and they're trying to describe the whole elephant. And someone's holding the tail and they're saying, you know what, this elephant, it's long. And yeah, it's really long, it's like a snake. And somebody stood at the tusk and they're holding the tusk and they're saying, no, actually, it's really hard and it's smooth. And somebody stood at the leg and saying, no, actually, it's really big and it's leathery. But all of them are blindfolded and they're only describing one aspect of that elephant. And in the same way, these Kirtam Naams, they only describe one aspect of Vaheguru. But this is what Kirtam Naam is, but Maharaj gave us what we know as Satnaam, the true name, the complete name, which is Vaheguru Mantra Jap. And that will take us to that experience of Vaheguru, the complete experience of Vaheguru, which was not there before. And so this is why many names appear in Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj. Actually, Vaheguru only appears around, I think, 18 times. Yeah, there are many names that appear far more. Yeah, Allah appears far more, Ram appears far more, Narayan, all these names appear far more than Vaheguru does within Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj. Yeah, but these are all because the descriptions that they're giving. But the Guru Mantra that we've been instructed to recite, if we think about the power that just Narayan Jap had on Ajaamal, yeah, what is the power that Vaheguru Mantra will have? The complete name. And this is the sort of breakdown of Vaheguru, where the Vaheguru Jap actually comes from. So in Satjug that we've been talking about, the different jugs, within Satjug, the most popular, or the Jap, the Naam that was given during Satjug was Vasudev, a name for Vishnu. During Dvapar, it was Hari, or Har Har, for Hari Krishna. During Treta, the most sort of prachalt Jap that you had was Ram. And in Kaljug now, the prachalt Naam is Gobind. So what the japa of Vaheguru, we get the letters, the akkars from each four of these. Vava for Vasudev, Ha for Hari or Har Har, and Gagga for Govind, and Rara for Ram. And this makes Vaheguru. So all the sort of Prachalta names of all the different ages is all encompassed within Vaheguru. This is the complete name for Vaheguru. TK, make sense? Any questions? Okay, we're going to wrap it up now. But what I wanted to just draw attention to was, how can we learn more about these different stories? Because, like I say, there are so many different examples of these stories coming up in Guru Sahib, and we're not always sure what these names mean, or we're not always sure what they're referring to. Some of them, not all of them, but many of them are included within Bhai Gurdas Ji Avada. So Sri Guru Arjan Dev Ji Maharaj, when they first compiled Adi Granth, the scribe was their Mamma Ji, who was known as Bhai Gurdas Ji. Bhai Gurdas Ji then wrote his scripts. And Bhai Gurdas Ji's script is known as being the Chabi to Guru Granth Sahib, the key to understanding Guru Granth Sahib. And within Bhai Gurdas Ji Avada, a lot of the concepts we talk about here, that is where they are fully described. Where they're not fully described within Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji, they are fully described within Bhai Gurdas Ji Avada. So the idea of Homme, what is Homme? You'll learn that from Bhai Gurdas Ji Avada. What is Maya? You'll learn that in Bhai Gurdas Ji Avada. What is the history, sort of some of the history of Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj? You'll learn that in Bhai Gurdas Ji Avada. This is the sort of the context of Guru Granth Sahib Ji. And in that same way, they actually include the sort of a little bit more in depth of the stories that come. So you'll see, all these are just examples of the different stories that we have. So we've got of Dhruv Bhagat, their one. We just talked about Bhagat Prehlaad Ji. Draupadi, you might have heard of Mata Draupadi as well. Various different ones as well. We've got Sudama, who was a childhood friend of Krishna. And they're mentioned in Gurbani as well. We just talked about Ajaamal. Many, many different stories that come within Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj are then expanded on further within Bhai Gurdas Ji Avada. And the Bhai Gurdas Ji also discusses the Bhagats, some of the lives of the Bhagats who have written Bani in Guru Granth Sahib Ji. And we're going to talk about them next week because those are slightly different. Yeah, the Bhagats who themselves, their Banis in Guru Granth Sahib Ji, that's what we're going to discuss next week. But you can read about them here. Like I say, there are some mentions of other ones that are not necessarily in here in Bhai Gurdas Ji Avada that are just sort of very briefly mentioned, and you can read about them in other places as well. These are just a few. I'm sure I missed many out as well. But Chandrahans, Durbasha, Rishi, and Gajinder. There's many different ones. Actually, there's one that many of us may know. So just a quick show of hands. People who have maybe listened to or read Asadi Varbani. Quick show of hands. Okay. Everybody say it with me then. Asa Mahalla Pehla, Var Sloka Naal, Slok Pi Mahalle Pehle Ke Likhe, Tunde Asraje Ki Tuni. What does Tunde Asraje Ki Tuni mean? Anybody know? Okay. Tunde Asraje Ki Tuni refers to another story. Tuni is a tune. It's the prescription of how to play Asadivar. Asadivar is a shabad that we sing to Kirtan. Tunde Asraja Ki Tuni. Tunda is somebody who's a limp. Somebody's only, who's lost a limb. So it's about the story of a Raja called Raja Asa, and he was a limp. And I'll just tell the story in very, very sort of brief terms. But the sort of story of Raja Asa is he was banished from his own kingdom. His, as we see in many different stories, you have the evil stepmother conspiring. She wanted her own children to ascend to the throne, and throughout this conspiring, at a young age, he's banished from his kingdom, and he goes to the next kingdom, and through his own sort of efforts, he becomes a king of the next kingdom. And when he becomes a king of that next kingdom, I talk about him being a limp. He was actually originally, sentenced to death, but the executioner backed out on it and only cut off his hand. So he goes to this next kingdom, he becomes the king over there. When he becomes king over there, over many years, because he grew up in a royal household, he knew how to rule, he was a very adept ruler. So then when there came a time of a famine, in all the kingdoms around, all the different kingdoms, they were running out of grain, and Raja Asas was the only one that actually had grain. So many different other kingdoms were trading and dealing with Raja Asa. And at one point, when his father, Raja Asa's father, came to make a deal with him, he realized that his son was still alive. And he regretted what he had done, and he began to build that relationship back with King Asa. But his stepson, realizing that his throne's going to go, he wages war on Raja Asa to try and kill him, and he's defeated in that battle. And then Raja Asa goes and he conquers this land. And during that time when this happened, the folk singers, they made songs about Raja Asa, and they were kind of like battle songs. Yeah, they were quite like upbeat, songs. And the tune that they made them to was Tunde Asaraja Ki Tuni. That is the name of the tune. The tune of Tunde Asaraja. And so Sri Guru Hargobind Sahib Ji Maharaj has said that the Shabad of Asa Diwar is to be sung to this same tune that was used by the folk singers who sung about this king. Make sense? Yeah. So there's all these kind of little stories that are dotted around Guru Granth Sahib Ji, where when you start to get the idea of it, or when you start to understand it, then it kind of, all the pieces start to come together, and our understanding of Guru Granth Sahib Ji, the Bani of Guru Granth Sahib Ji, it just takes new heights and new levels. So it's really great to be able to understand these stories, listen to Katha. You can go online and, many, many different Katha Varchiks, whether it's Sant Singh Maskeen Ji, whether it's Gyani Kulwant Singh Ji, Gyani Pindarpal Singh Ji, whoever they are, even in English. If you want to listen to Bhai Gurdas Ji Katha in English, I believe Bhai Sukhraj Singh Ji, if you just type in Bhai Gurdas Ji Diyawara in English, Bhai Sukhraj Singh, he's got a full, he's gone through the whole of Bhai Gurdas Ji Diyawara in English. In this Darbar, I believe, as well, actually did it on Sikh channel. So you can go away, you can listen to that as well. And those stories are there as well. Yeah. But these will help you to understand. But at least now we know, at least in Radas, when we read about Harnaksh and Prehlaad, we know what that story is. And we know now, when we read Kirtan Soila at night, what the sort of Bishokar, what the background to the Shabads that are in there as well. Okay, is there any questions before we wrap up? Okay. Next week we're going to go on, we're going to talk about the Bhagats, we're going to talk a little bit about grammar as well, and we're going to, this sort of next part, we've kind of been looking at the content, as you can see now, from talking about Bhai Gurdas Ji, and we're talking more about how you can make that step of understanding Gurbani better as well. So that's going to be kind of more the focus over the next couple of weeks. So like I said, if there's any questions, you can put them in this box. I'm going to put that box over there. Over the next 2 weeks, we'll start answering questions for about 10 minutes at the end as well. So I'll see everybody next week. Please forgive any mistakes. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.